Thank you, everyone. Sit down, please. Right, welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's member forum. We'll start, as ever, with the safety information. For those in the room, I'm sure you all know by now the emergency evacuation procedure. Should there be an alarm, please exit the building through the nearest doors, which will be over there, and congregate in front of the cathedral. Hopefully everyone is seated 1 metre apart in your allocated seats. There are additional COVID measures in place, including having the windows open. People are advised to wear masks unless you're speaking or have a medical exemption. Full details of the questions submitted to Member Forum and the Mayor's written replies have been published on the website. Unfortunately, the Mayor is not with us today as he's attending COP26, so Deputy Mayor Craig Cheney is with us, standing in and may also direct replies to other Cabinet members as appropriate. Groups have submitted the questions in priority order and they're presented rotating around the party groups. Now, you'll have noticed we have some technical difficulties in the chamber today. The microphones on your seats are not working today. So unless you have a delegate mic like this one in front of you, there's a podium, microphone on the podium at the end of the room. I'll ask councillors, as you're asking questions, to make your way to that podium in order to ask those questions. As ever, each councillor is asked a maximum of 2 questions. If you've asked 1 question, you get 1 follow-up, and if you've asked 2 questions, you get 2 follow-ups. So we'll start, please, with Councillor Massey on A4018 traffic. You asked 1 question, Councillor Massey, so you have 1 follow-up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My supplementary follow-up was obviously intended for the Mayor, but he's not here. I'm sure somebody else will pick it up in due course. So my supplementary question is, having recently experienced the very long delays caused by the ongoing development and the reduction to 1 lane of traffic each way from the Old Crow roundabout, we will soon have gridlock in that area on a daily basis, particularly with the expected rise in traffic going to the Mall for shopping in Christmas. This will have a really adverse impact on residents living in Southmead and Henbury, and also on people needing to attend Southmead Hospital. So it would be really helpful to know if my colleagues from neighbouring wards perhaps have put forward any potential solutions to alleviate the situation, because it really is incredibly difficult, and most of it is caused by the single lane traffic, which is a result of South Gloucester building lots of new houses there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Does that work? Great. I don't know if Don, whether you want to come in on that question. Would you like me to speak from here, or if you could use the microphone, yeah, thanks.
Yes, it would be very, very helpful if the members for Henbury and Westbury-on-Trim would recognise the challenge that Cribbs Patchway is for the area. I'm afraid dialogue...
You will when one's finished, yeah.
Dialogue hasn't always been constructive. I look forward to the next phase of that. I look forward to the next phase of that being more constructive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Weston.
I think my colleague made the mistake of actually indicating who he was talking about. Right, we did actually submit solutions. As part of the original proposals that the Mayor put forward in the A4&A, we presented 9 pages of solutions. The single lane traffic, as he will know, was only going on until March or April. He will also know that we have a petition running at the moment where we believe you should remove the bus lane on Station Road, because at the moment we have access to Henbury only via a flooded ford. So actually, you can't have an entire community. So if he would like a genuine solution, which would allow residents to get to his ward, he could work with South Gloucester, remove that bus lane, now traffic to bleed off down Station Road. So there you go. In 20 seconds, there's one solution. Maybe if you reached out to us, we'd give you a few more.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Green question 1, Councillor Edwards, on blocked drains. Councillor Edwards, you've asked 2 questions, so you can have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So first, I'd like to say thank you for the answer. It was useful to know that performance scoring and reviews will happen of the contract. And thank you for highlighting those areas that you say do need addressing. So the capacity issues with Wessex Water run sewers, the updating of the pumps and pipework in the subways, and the leaves issues that are being dealt with by Bristol Waste. So my first question is, with regular flooding of the drain's current ongoing issues, what more can we do to work with Wessex Water and Bristol Waste to improve the situation in the short term?
Thanks. I mean, I suppose it's probably something that I'll have to take away, but I mean, it's definitely, so part of the problem is the kind of rise in water plane more generally that causes an issue in many parts of the country, actually, not just Bristol. So we'll take those conversations away, or, you know, we'll speak to Wessex and see what we can do with them. In terms of clearing the leaves and so on, we have a bit more direct control over that, so we are working with Bristol Waste on that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Edgeworth, have a second question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So the administration realises that access for all people, especially people with disabilities, is an important part of the city's infrastructure. And the subways, and especially the Lawrence Hill underpass, is currently very prone to flooding, which makes access, walking, and those using mobility devices difficult and dangerous. So do you agree that updating this pipework and pump system around these areas to deal with flooding is quite an urgent priority?
Yeah, absolutely. But there's also kind of a more strategic push to move away from that sort of subway and underpass infrastructure, which is a bit dated now, and to try and create more, I think it's called on grade, is it, level? So for example, Old Market or anywhere in Bristol, really, Berrapit, for example, where we've moved to crossing people at street level rather than taking them under and back out the other side, which will have removed some of those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We now move to Conservative question 1, Councillor Galandris. Councillor, you've asked 2 questions, so 2 follow-ups.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. And can I thank the Mayor for his answers? I appreciate he's not here today. I'm guessing these might be more for Don than yourself, Craig. But here's my supplementary to question 1. Many of my elderly and disabled residents can't use public transport, so have no option but to use their cars for accessing the city centre, usually via Park Street. What I'm looking for is a commitment to ensure that those residents with blue badges will still be allowed through any proposed bus gate.
Thanks. So I suppose the quick answer is we're only consulting on the changes at the moment, so that's absolutely one of the things that we can consider in that consultation. Obviously, that there is no intention to close it to shoppers and residents, so it's only through traffic to which or at least that we're consulting on the closure of. So absolutely, it can be fed into the mix of the conversation.
My second supplementary is a very straightforward, factual one. Obviously, the full consultation hasn't been published yet, it's just been trailed. So is the proposed bus gate at the bottom of Park Street or at the top of Park Street?
Now I will have to hand to Don for that one, I'm afraid. I don't know the answer to that, Don.
That will be evident from the consultation materials when they come out.
So I don't know if you heard that. That will come out in the consultation materials.
Because if it's at the top of Park Street, it will be closed to shoppers and everybody else.
Yeah, I suppose the point is, John, the consultation will have a range of options in it that could include top or bottom or both. Yeah. Right.
Okay, thank you very much. We move then to Liberal Democrat. Question 1, Councillor Varney, on the Callington Road link. Councillor, it's 1 question, so 1 follow-up.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'm really pleased that Mayor Rees' priority for Brislington is a low-carbon mass transit system, and I'm very much looking forward to using it should I still be alive. However, my question wasn't about that. Just to reiterate, before the recent elections, Mayor Rees wrote to local residents and said that a road would not be built along the former railway alignment in Brislington West. Indeed, Councillor Clark and I were called liars for suggesting such a scheme existed. However, project managers have told us that a road scheme is on the table. It is mentioned several times in the joint local transport plan, and members of the Mayor's transport team are currently recommending that an active travel proposal for the route is rejected. So once again, will you confirm here and now that you will keep your promise to local residents made just before the election and state without equivocation that a road will not be built along the former Brislington railway line. Thank you.
So there is no plans to build a road along the former Brislington railway line.
Thank you.
Okay. We move then to Labour question 2, Councillor Pearce. And thank you, Councillor Pearce, for moving into position. If I could encourage councillors to do that, if you know you're next up, it will help to move things along. Councillor Pearce, one follow-up, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Since 2016, we've initiated a number of policies to improve the cleanliness of our streets. While programmes such as the Big Tidy have helped immensely, commercial waste continues to be a problem, which is why I was pleased to see the launch of a commercial waste reform programme in the Old City. Please could the Mayor or Councillor Beach update me on the success of this scheme, and will it be rolled out to other areas of the city?
Thanks, Steve. I mean, I guess the pilot has meant that commercial waste contractors have had to change the services that they're currently offering, which is much better than the offers we had previously. It should hopefully result in a much cleaner Old City and more accessible to people as we see bins starting to come off the streets and highways. It's changing the market and forcing contractors to provide a service that is better for residents. And of course, we'll take the learnings from that and roll it out where we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As you know,
Councillor Pearce, you had one follow-up question, which
Yes.
I think you've asked. You submitted one question, so you get one follow-up, which you've used.
No, I've only used the one question. The question was areas of the city.
Right, so what you just asked, Councillor Pearce, was that your written question?
That was my original question.
Okay, right. Just to remind everybody, you don't need to read out the written question. That's already been answered in writing. So it's just the follow-up question that we need to have orally.
It's great for the theatrical effect, though, surely.
Well, I'm sure it is, but there's other people waiting to get in. So go ahead, ask your follow-up.
Okay. As you know, I'm the council's elected member representative of APSI, where we share best practice. Will you be sharing our policies with other councils who could follow Bristol's lead? I suggest that having seen the images of bin bags piling up on its streets, that Brighton may be a good place to start. Theatrical effect.
Yes, we will happily, Steve. We will certainly be sharing it through core cities and so on. Yeah.
Thank you. You're most gracious.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Right, Green question 2, Councillor Wilcox, on electric vehicle support. You've asked 2 questions, so you have 2 follow-up questions.
Thank you. I'm only going to ask one. Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. My question is, will members of parking services be empowered to unplug cables that are strewn across the streets that charge electric vehicles? Please.
It's a very good question to which I do not know the answer, but we will take it away and find out for you and come back to you in writing.
I'd like a written answer on that one,
Yeah,
please.
no problem. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thanks, David.
Thank you very much. And Conservative question 2, Councillor Eddy, on the South Bristol Youth Zone. Councillor Eddy, you asked 2 questions, so you have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Genie, can I thank the Mayor for his reassuring response? I'll pass it on to my constituents, who will be appreciative of it, of course. No questions.
Thank you very much. In which case, we move on to Liberal Democrat question 2, Councillor Clark, on Sandy Road Park signage. And that was 1 question, so 1 follow-up, please.
Sorry, my apologies for my tardiness. Thank you very much for the response to my question about the Sandy Park Road possible signage. In here, you're saying that the Council's Economic Development team would be happy to help progress this and coordinate other input from other departments. Would they be charging me for this? And if so, how will that mechanism work? And the second part of this same question is the Welcome Back Fund. Although I'd really like to use it, the timelines are so incredibly short and tight. One, it's a listed wall, it's a listed building. To get an application in, drawn up with all the elevations done properly, to get it through planning and get that signage delivered by March, absolutely impossible. If the council could show a bit of leeway and a little bit of latitude and support on this, then maybe we could do it. But in the time frames, and that is the best best mechanism to do it, that would be fantastic.
All right, great. I mean, I'll take your question away and speak to Jason Thorne about that. I mean, in terms of, in terms of the kind of the first question, I think you wouldn't be charged for it. We would just link you up with the economic development team. You would happily help you understand what needs to happen to get it delivered. In terms of the Welcome Back Fund, yeah, I'll have to take that away and see what we can do in terms of time leeway.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we move to Labour question 3, Councillor Goggin, who I don't think is here. No. So we'll move to Green question 3, Councillor Mack on green finance. And Councillor Mack, you have one follow-up, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sadly, the answer I got didn't in any way answer my question other than talk about the perhaps problems or alternatives to the things that I was asking. So I haven't had a yes or no. So actually I'd like to ask Councillor Cleaney, what I'm proposing, what I'm requesting is that a cross-party group of councillors would be involved in big financing decisions that are for the long-term future of the city. And I would be really interested as your Cabinet Member for Finance, whether you support that idea and think that it's something that might happen.
So can I just be clear that you're talking about the council's budget, or are you talking about working with partners to deliver the bigger issues?
I'm talking about the latter, yeah, working with partners, but it's a thing that shapes our city and that the council is actively going after. Yeah,
so I'm absolutely happy to work with you on that. I have no problem with a cross-party working group, whether or not, well, yeah, happy to do that, yeah.
Let's set it up.
Thank you very much. And Conservative question 3, Councillor Weston on Crow Lane CCTV. You have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Apologies for the gravelly voice. I'm like Barry White without the talent. So I note the latter paragraph. CTV should only be one element of wider public safety problem solving. I would agree on that. However, the police have stepped up their patrol. Social services are acting. It's actually the one element that currently is failing. So on the basis that we've had physical attacks, we've had fireworks thrown into shops, widespread shoplifting, mass vandalism, we've had bollards thrown through bus windows. Since it's the one element failing, could I please ask when, you say February, I think we're going to need that a bit sooner, what steps you're going to take to accelerate that timeline?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I mean, the CCTV across the city has been something that we've been working to replace for a number of years. It's a huge scale problem, and it requires a lot of effort, cost, and officer time to get it all fixed. So we've put through, I think, £3 million or so in replacing CCTV across the city. In terms of prioritising this one over other parts of the city, I guess that's a conversation I'll have to take away from here. You know, if we could advance that at any speed, it's not something I'd want to promise right now.
Okay. Second follow-up, if I may, in answer to question 2. You say, well, the Mayor says, CCTV needs to be judged to be an appropriate response. I'd like to know who's making the decision as to whether it's an appropriate response, so I know who best to lobby.
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. I guess it would be a combination of the police ourselves and the kind of safer streets type people. So again, we can come back to you and we can find out who you need to speak to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Shall we move to Liberal Democrat question 3, Councillor Hartley on flood strategy. You have 1 follow-up.
Thank you. Please thank the Mayor for the answer to my original question. However, the answer I received did not answer the question that I had asked. I am already aware of the fact that large amounts of my ward face significant flooding, especially with increased flood risk as the cause of the climate emergency. I had asked for an idea of when the River Avon flood strategy will come on stream. Can I ask, once again, what is the current projected timescale for the delivery of the River Avon flood strategy so that local residents that fear flooding can finally see a light at the end of the tunnel? Thank you.
So it's a complicated thing, and it's been very difficult to pull together. So I wouldn't like to promise you a date today with an answer to that in it. There is a project that is being worked on. We are doing it as quickly as we possibly can. We will get a strategy through, but it's just very complicated and taking a long time. Okay. So I'm sorry I can't give you a definite, but on February the 2nd, 2022, it will be ready, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Labour question 4 is Councillor Bennett on nighttime economy, and you have 2 follow-up questions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I thank the Mayor in his absence for his answer. It's reassuring to hear that the Council has been working with partners to stamp out drink spiking. I've also been updated by the licensing team who are working with the sector to find pragmatic solutions to reduce occasions where drinks need to be left unattended, which is promising. Concerns around women's safety unfortunately go much wider than drink spiking, unfortunately. What other campaigns or policy interventions is the Council currently undertaking to improve women's safety?
Yeah, thanks, Marley. I was going to bring Councillor Holland into this conversation now because she's leading on making Bristol a safe city for women and girls, but she's had to do some press on the Afghan resettlement scheme, so she's going to be a little bit late. That said, the Mayoral Commission on Domestic Abuse will be reconvening in 2 weeks' time to plan more actions against the recommendations that we already have.
Thank you. Moving on to my second. Supporting our brilliant pubs goes hand in hand with the nighttime economy, and I'm backing a local campaign where residents are hoping to buy the Merchant Arms and run it as a community pub. You'll be aware that councillors in Bristol have recently received an email campaign from CAMRA regarding a number of planning policies that are designed to protect community pubs, but have supposedly been circumvented by developers. Has the Mayor seen this letter, and if so, will he reiterate the Council's commitment to these policies?
Yeah, absolutely, and we have already replied to CAMRA, actually. We do absolutely recognise the value of pubs to the community, as is reflected in our robust planning policies. Whether we're fully compliant with these is another question. We do have little, obviously, influence over the commercial market, and we are operating in a post-COVID world, which has created a huge raft of problems for the hospitality sector. Ultimately, these end up being planning decisions that we can't rightly influence.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move then to Green, question 4. Councillor Stone on walking in the city. Councillor Stone, you have 2 follow-ups.
Hi, thanks very much for this, Lord Mayor. Well, thanks very much for the response from the Mayor. I did receive the response from the Mayor for my question 1. However, to be honest with you, pavement parking is a massive issue that we have right across the city, not just in Windmill Hill. And again, it seemed a bit like, blah, 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 blah. First person to say it, the response, and it also seemed a bit like tit for tat. This is that. Who controls this? Who controls that? And etc. Right. What I want to propose and want to ask is whether or not this city could be just a non-tolerant city of pavement parking. Put it in the local plan. Make it an absolute. We don't want to have pavement parking at all, regardless of what. So that's my question. Thank you.
I mean, the key point, which is answered in the question, is that that's a police power and not a council one. We could double yellow line the entire city, which then we would be able to enforce. But I suspect we're not going to do that. There are, of course, many streets in Bristol where you wouldn't be able to park in them at all.
Yeah, but that's the issue. I read that. That was what you've told me already. The problem is that it's not being enforced. So why can't we put it in the local plan to say it will be enforced?
Is this your second question, Councillor Stone?
No, it is raised in the first question.
Well, okay, but.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
The Mayor's required to answer, not required to give you an answer that you agree with.
And the answer is that we can't enforce it without double yellow lines. The council can't enforce it as a police power otherwise, whether it's in the local plan or not.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next question.
My second part of the question, my second question is, which is, I felt was quite interesting, actually, the second part of the question, because I didn't talk about RPZs in the question. I talked about walking, and I'm very in for active travel and walking, but you brought up RPZs, which opens up the whole debate. Sorry, not you, the Mayor did. So what I'd like to know is why can't Windmill Hill have an RPZ? Because if we implement an RPZ in Windmill Hill, okay, it would really nudge people to actively travel, especially in the Bedminster Green framework. Now, the Bedminster Green framework has been created to be low-traffic neighbourhood. It's being created to be active travel. I think we've reduced the parking space for the Bedminster Green framework by about 25 parking spaces. That's been reduced. So therefore, we need to nudge people to actually active travel. And what's happening is that obviously people are going to have cars and they're going to park them in Windmill Hill. So to nudge people to actively travel across the Bedminster Green framework, really you should be putting RBZ in Windmill Hill. So why can't we have one?
Well, thank you. So as I think has always been our commitment, that if there's enough local pressure for a RPZ, we will build one. It's not our, or we will put one in. It's not our strategic direction. We prefer livable neighbourhoods than RPZs. We think RPZs do displace traffic into the next ward. I used to live in Windmill Hill, and I know what it's like, and I know what happens if you live in Brislington or just further down the road a bit in Knoll.
And you know that there is a massive amounts of local pressure to have an RPZ in Windmill Hill.
Okay, you've had your 2 questions. I'm afraid we don't have time for a debate on this.
Okay,
it's just a question.
Cheers. Thanks very much for your help, thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. We move to Conservative question 4, Councillor Michala, on Dingle Close tennis courts, and you have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. In the response to my questions, the Mayor stated that the Council have renovated many tennis courts in the city and improved the citywide tennis offer significantly. This is all very commendable, but why is it that in the 6 years his administration's been in charge that these courts have been forgotten?
So they haven't been forgotten, they're forming part of a broader strategy. So, I mean, you know, as we've answered in the first question, if there's really a lot of local commitment, it would be great to do something like they've done at the Ardagh, which is where the community have taken it on themselves and done it themselves. And I mean, they've unlocked a great little community space there in the Ardagh. So we're doing what we can. We're working with the Lawn Tennis Association, as we said, and we are, you know, trying to salvage what we can, but it's very difficult with a limited budget.
Thank you. And my second question is, as the Mayor's refused my invitation to inspect the tennis courts, can I get a commitment today from the executive member that he or she will come down and inspect the site instead?
I don't think the executive member is here, are they? Who's responsible for part? Is it? Oh, sorry, Ellie.
I'll just repeat the question, it's fine. My question was, as the Mayor has refused my invitation to inspect the tennis courts himself, can I get a commitment from you that you will inspect the site instead?
Yeah, I'd be happy to come and visit Park.
Okay, lovely. I'll email you then.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to the Liberal Democrat question 4, which is Councillor Brown. Is Councillor Brown here at the moment? No, okay. So we'll move on then to Green question 5, Councillor Y, on low traffic neighbourhoods.
Thank you very much for the answer that you gave me on low traffic neighbourhoods. Just one follow-up, really. We've heard that in the answer that there's going to be one definite sort of plan for one in St George, with possibly some more. My concern is, whilst I'm a massive supporter of low traffic neighbourhoods, I'm worried about the pace of this. We've got so little time to address the problems of air quality in our city and traffic in our city. Is it possible you can give us a bit more detail on some kind of, only if it's only indicative timescale about some of the rollout of low traffic neighbourhoods?
Well, I might defer to Don on that one. Don, I don't know if you've got details on that yet.
Yeah, we're working on the livable neighbourhood strategy now. But of course, it is dependent on funding. So we're not sure how much funding is available. Along with the strategy, there will be a matrix that will prioritise the areas that we propose to use the funding that we do have. And certainly levels of deprivation will be an indicator that we'll definitely be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move then to Conservative question 5, Councillor Geeta, on the King's Western Iron Bridge, and you have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I thank the Mayor for his response. However, the response seems to leave us in the same position we've been in for the past 2 years. What I would really like to know, and the residents would like to know, is what progress has been made in those 2 years that could be communicated back so that people just don't think nothing has happened.
Yeah, my wife's family are local, so I hear quite a bit about this issue. So various bits of work have been done. We've been costing up potential solutions. We've been looking at access issues and various other bits. We will be coming forward with a costed option, but that said, it needs to fit within the various other strategic maintenance projects that we've got going on across the city, which are mentioned in the answer, and we need to just prioritise. We're going to need to prioritise because we can't afford to do all of it.
Sorry, just to confirm, that was no progress, or there was some progress?
There's been lots of progress, yeah, lots. We've got a worked up, or we will have a worked up and costed option. Whether we can afford it is the question, yeah.
Sure. Well, to my second supplementary then, which was around the funding and specific, it was initially about the charges at Blaze, because it wasn't clear that money would just be for parks. I think it referred to local heritage sites. But we all know money is tight, and I explain to residents quite often that once a planning application is approved, the funding might not even be there yet, but an approved planning application would at least be progress. So can you confirm that it's not the council's the council isn't trying to hold up a planning application because they can't afford it. And that, you know, if we can get a planning application approved, even if there is no money, and that's a different conversation to have with residents, it at least gives us the option to look at other options of funding.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of confirm that. Our planning application should be in the next couple of months, so we'll see that come through very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll move to the Liberal Democrat question 5, Councillor Classic on underpass flooding, and you have one supplementary.
So first I'd like to say thank you for the reply, specifically regarding the Hengrove roundabout flooding. I'm pleased to see in the reply that subways are no longer going to be part of the long-term plan for the city and hopefully being phased out for street level. Just with regards to your points about the reason the flooding has been so bad is because the contractor has pulled out due to COVID. For starters, I think some residents have mentioned that it predates definitely COVID, and certainly other flooding in underpasses in the city do. What measures are being taken to ensure that future contractors don't leave us in this situation again, given that flooding is massively impactful on people walking and cycling around the city, which really we do want to encourage?
Yeah, I mean, we have various KPIs, obviously, that are measured against and that there will be kind of service credits against. So those things exist, and we have a new contract now that should help us to enforce that a bit more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Green question 6 then, Councillor Stafford Townsend on safe play areas and the Women's Commission report. You have 2 follow-ups.
Hello. So given that we've got potentially a proportion of a £24 million strategic SIL pot to spend on Castle Park, it seems really disappointing that we can't commit to inclusion in that, because we've got such a great opportunity to make it a really inclusive space with social value. Can I have at least an assurance that with the consultation ideas that come forward, that a space that's accessible for all, including adults with additional needs, can be included in the consultation?
Yeah, I think we can commit to that, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Sorry, we move to Conservative question 6, Councillor Alexander on parking charges at Blaze and Albury Court. You have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Deputy Mayor, thank you for the replies that I've had from the Mayor. However, he says that the toilet blocks have now been opened. However, the toilet block in Greville Smythe Park remains boarded up, and there may be others. Can we have a list, please, of the park facilities which were closed?
Yeah, yes, we can organise that for you. I don't have one to hand, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to Liberal Democrat question 6, Councillor Kent. I think Councillor Kent's not with us, so we'll move to Green question 7, Councillor Plowden on Clean Air Zone. So Councillor Plowden, you'll have 2 follow-ups.
So thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you very much for the answers to my question, although the first answer isn't really an answer. I asked, could we investigate the hoardings? Can we investigate the hoardings? And the answer was, could we? So could we now move to actually putting in a plan to at least investigate this and see if we can improve road safety on this corridor by removing those hoardings and freeing up some space for cycling and walking?
Yeah, I mean, the answer says that we can do that, yes. We happily will include it in the consultation, yeah. We'll include it in the consultation, yeah. I'm not saying that we'll remove them. We need to marry that off against the loss in income and so on.
Yeah, great. And then the other one was about displacement. And I think it's kind of fanciful thinking, really, to think that there won't be some traffic displacement from the CAS, particularly on the areas on the side. As any child who's tried to build a dam in a river will tell you, water will flow anywhere and traffic is just like water. Bath has found this exact same thing, that on the edge of the CAS there has been some displacement. I can see that, and actually in the Cabinet report, the Wells Road has no modelling. It may be an omission, but at the moment I can't tell whether or not there's going to be an increase or decrease in traffic on the Wells Road because there's no modelling. So I'd be very interested to know if at least we could have some resources put in reserve to make sure that any displacement issues that do arrive quite shortly after the CAS is put in place, like in Bath, that we could actually have some resources to monitor that and tackle it.
So we are committed to monitoring that. We already are, and I don't know if Don, if you want to come into it. We're tackling it. I mean, we'll have to see if there is displacement and then tackle it when it happens. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Conservative question 7 is Councillor Scott, who I think isn't here, so we'll move to Liberal Democrat question 7, Councillor Hopkins on Brislington Meadows. And Councillor Hopkins, you'll have 2 follow-ups if you need them.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I noticed from the non-answer to the first one that no figure has been given for the amount of work undertaken by this council. There was a huge increase in the value of the almost landlocked piece of land owned by the property investment company. I've spoken to Homes England, I've spoken to the other party that was involved in the sale, and a large amount of work was done by this council. Are you saying that you're unable to tell us how much that actually costs, and that you failed to recover any of the increase in value that you achieved for the investment company?
So, I mean, so did we spend officer time on that? We absolutely did, but it wasn't to increase the land value for O&H or whomever it is you're suggesting we were increasing the value for. So there was no fee paid to us for that because that wasn't the intention of the work.
Right, not very good business then. We've heard recently Councillor Rippington describe the Mayor as being in dereliction of his duty. At the time, just before the elections, most of us realised that it was completely empty promise from the Mayor to prevent development there. Was some extra promise or information given to Councillor Rippington at the time to make him believe the propaganda or not?
I'm afraid I can't comment on private conversations between Marvin and Tim, Councillor Rippington. I don't have that information to hand.
So, as you weren't involved, can I get a written answer?
Yeah, you've had 2 questions, Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, but I haven't got answers.
Well, you've had replies. You don't have to be satisfied with them, I'm afraid. So we move to Green question 8, Councillor Parsons on planters and street amenities, and you have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I'd like to thank the Mayor in his absence for his, I felt, rather encouraging response to my question about the possibility of developing a streamlined process for residents and community groups to be able to apply to install planters on their residential streets. I was particularly encouraged by the suggestion that if I were able to present a plan to the administration, we might be able to work something up. And I do note as well, in response to my question 1, that the council has approved many planter schemes across the city, so it's clearly possible to do it in a way that conforms to our statutory duties and health and safety, and make sure that everyone in the street has a chance to have their say. So I'm going to go a little bit more ambitious now, and wondering whether the administration would be willing to consider applications for parklets. You may have heard of the parklet concept. It's a small area of the street around the size of a car parking space, which is taken over for planting, seating, for community uses. Is that something that the administration would consider?
So I mean, as with all these things, I guess it comes down to appetite for local residents, does it, as well as impact on traffic flows and all those things. So I'm aware of one in my ward, for example, where we've got an application for, or we've got public conversation on that at one end of the street. At the other end of the street, they're horrified at the idea that they won't be able to get out onto the main road without having to drive a very long way out of where they currently live. So absolutely up for the conversation, but you know, it's never easy.
Absolutely, fantastic. Okay, so moving on from that then, I mean, it's going to be difficult for me as a ward councillor without support to be able to develop a detailed plan myself, so I was wondering whether it might be possible to arrange to meet perhaps with Councillor Alexander, perhaps with a bit of officer support, so we could discuss some of the available sort of templates out there for this process, the Hackney Parklet process being one, and the Sustrans Community Toolkit being another. Is that something that you would be up for, Councillor Alexander?
Oh, it is working. Thanks. I've already met with John Asher and Vicky Stone from South Trans talking about their community toolkit, and I'm looking forward to a second meeting with them. So I would rather do it at the policy level and then come down to individual areas once we've got that toolkit up and running, which I hope we will have.
Great. Thanks very much. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you. So, Conservative question 8 is Councillor Courtley, who's not with us, so we'll move to Liberal Democrat question 8. Councillor Clark on community buses. You have one follow-up.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for your swift response, Councillor Alexander. I'm just very sad that it's taken me... I brought a question last full council about community buses, no action, and as soon as I put in a second question this time about community buses, because I hadn't had a response from last time, that's when I get a response. Is that how it's going to have to be? That's the only way that I'm going to get meetings set up and meetings with yourself and responses from executive members if we have to just bring everything via full council and have to ask questions so that we can get meetings set up. Is that the way I've got to do it? I'm just really sad. I was really sad, actually. Sorry. It's Wecker. Fabulous answer. Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Green question 9 then. Councillor Fodor on rewilding. Councillor Fodor, you've got 2 follow-ups.
Yes, thanks very much, Lord Mayor, and I got the replies from the Mayor. Coming to the second one first, I'd like to say I'm glad to hear that a small grant programme for community groups to support action on climate and ecological emergencies will be coming. Could we have a timescale for that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have one to hand, but yes, we will have a timescale. I can come back to you with it.
Okay. Well, can I have that in writing when it is available? Yeah, thanks. Okay, follow up to my first question and the response. The answer doesn't actually address my question. I asked if there was a clear procedure for rewilding parks and open spaces, you know, for sowing wildflowers, for reducing mowing and so on, with timescales and routes into the council for community groups to pursue these rather than having it done one-to-one every single time. And the answer does point out there's an officer, does point out there are web pages on the ecological emergency and how to get involved on those. I've had a look. I can't see how you can get involved. There isn't a procedure. So will there be a procedure?
Yeah, I think the answer is supposed to say that we've recruited someone recently, and so those things will come and follow. So you will hear, but it's just not there yet.
Okay. Is there a timescale for that as well?
I don't have one here, but I'm sure we can
okay. Well, I look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to give everyone notice, I'm intending to stop after question 9 from each group to move on to statements. So Conservative question 9. Councillor Hucker on council investments. You have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank the Mayor in his absence for his response to my questions. I do just have one supplementary, actually, which is in response to his answer to question 2. And this concerns the use of capital receipts. The reply indicated that it's not possible to use capital receipts to finance revenue expenditure. And I wondered whether that was actually a policy of the council or whether that's a policy which is externally imposed, which the council do not have any discretion over.
Yeah, so the answer is it's not a council policy, it's a national policy. So this is to avoid, obviously, councils selling all their assets to fund their revenue budgets and then running out of assets to which to continue to fund them. So it's, you know, it's a policy that we follow, but you can use it for transformation projects. So you can, in some senses, drive out some revenue spend from it. But
thank you for clarifying.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move to Councillor Varney for Lib Democrat question 9. And it's been pointed out to me there is actually only one other person present who's got a question, so I will then go to Councillor Gollop for question 11, since you're here. So, Councillor Varney, you have one follow-up.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I think a lot of people will be surprised at the cost of setting up a school street. Could the council investigate if any economies can be found in order to roll out this scheme more quickly than at present? There are currently only a handful of schemes in operation, and dozens of schools urgently want and need them. Thank you.
So we're always looking at driving out efficiencies from these things, so absolutely.
Thank you. So, Councillor Gollop, you had Conservative question 11 on smart roadways. And you have 2 follow-ups.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm grateful for the opportunity, really, to just follow up on questions, because the A4018 has been a matter of great concern, as you know, and to the fellow councillors on Westbury-on-Trim and Henleys, because we have been asking for meetings for 2 years to discuss the disastrous situation. I'm surprised that Councillor Alexander chose to be critical of that, but I will compliment him, because in fact he has broken the record of his predecessor by agreeing that we could have a meeting to discuss it. What I'd like to ask, Craig, is do council officers and the administration not recognise that talking with local residents before detailed consultations are put out could be a very constructive way of avoiding proposals that cause a great deal of concern because they don't solve the problem that they're intended to solve? And that constructive discussion is all we are asking for, and we have been refused it for 2 years. Would the administration consider changing that policy?
So I don't have a policy that means that we wouldn't talk to the residents before rolling out consultations. I don't believe the council has that policy, so absolutely agree to that. I don't want to speak for Don because it's his portfolio, but I think he would be happy to have those conversations, unless I'm mistaken. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm not wanting to put Don on the spot because I recognise he's new to the portfolio as well, but I will repeat the plea. Please engage and discuss, and members are very happy to help with the process of promoting schemes that will solve the problems that are intended. I just ask the administration to acknowledge that imposed schemes without any consultation, without members being told what is happening, is not an appropriate way to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the list. But Councillor Kent, we just skipped your question about 30 seconds before you got here. You had Liberal Democrat question 6 on AHCP. So if you'd like to use your follow-ups, we do have some time.
Oh, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I appreciate that. Very quickly then, thank you for the responses. I'm a bit concerned that it takes 2 months to be able to work out what the figures are. I'm sure you share that concern, and maybe that could be looked into. One thing I note, though, is the time frame being put forward is that additional staff are going to be sought as part of the budget process. That's February. Once we get around to advertising and recruiting, then we're summer if we're lucky. Do you think there's any way we could speed up this process to try to make sure, particularly regarding educational psychologists, we're putting those adverts out now?
So in terms of, I mean, I don't necessarily agree that February means we won't be recruiting until June. I think we can do that much more quickly and be in place for the start of the year,
right,
as in April. Yeah.
That would be great. Regarding educational psychologists, one thing I've been looking at long term is, of course, one of the big problems is for local governments being able to recruit educational psychologists. There's so few out there. 70%, I think, of local authorities report they have recruitment problems in this area. Now, one of the issues is the tightness the government have on the amount of placements for people studying educational psychology. I was wondering if the council would be willing to write a letter, which perhaps the mayor and myself could sign as chair of People's Scrutiny Commission, asking the government to increase the amount of placements. There's currently 203. They have increased it over time, but not enough. So I think that's something we could positively do.
Yeah, that would be great. And in fact, we could probably get a cross-party letter, I would have thought, if everyone else is agreeable to that.
Yeah, perhaps it's something we could work on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That concludes the questions. And can I just thank everybody for asking brief questions and giving brief answers. It's allowed us to get through a lot of questions today. We do have time to move on to statements, which I'll take in the order that they've been received. And councillors have 1 minute each to speak to your statements. Councillor Varney, you had the first statement about barriers on cycle paths. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Later today, we will be hearing from the Mayoral Commission on Disability Equality. They've certainly got their work cut out. I recently got in touch with council officers about the many and varied physical barriers that block our cycle paths. These barriers serve only to frustrate legitimate users by imposing an unacceptable obstacle to anyone in a wheelchair or on a non-standard bicycle. I'm pleased that council officers agreed that these barriers need to be removed, but I was told there was no budget to facilitate this. This is not good enough in a city that talks about increasing active travel and a city that supposedly supports disability equality. I would humbly request that as a matter of urgency, dedicated funding is made available and a timetable established in order to remove these barriers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll move to Councillor Clark for statement 2 on the Brislington Greenway. You have 1 minute, Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. The Brislington Greenway is a fabulous opportunity. I know we've got some people missing here today and they're up in Glasgow at COP. Brislington Greenway is a really good opportunity for more active travel, and Councillor Varney and I have been campaigning on this for a number of years, and I just ask and urge the council to give us an opportunity to enable people in the south of the city to cycle and walk and move around more actively. It's the missing link between Stockwood and Temple Mead, and we really, really need it. So I urge the council to enable us to have this fantastic route. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hartley, statement 3 on the Park Street busgate plans. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Since I put out a survey asking for residents' views on the Park Street busgate plans, I've had hundreds of responses, both for and against. Fundamentally, all local residents feel they need to have access through the busgate, so I'm very glad to hear from Councillor Alexander that this will be protected. I would also say that I hope the consultation is as full as possible, with wide outreach and engagement with the community prioritised, and will offer local residents multiple options rather than just one option being forced upon them by the Council and West of England Combined Authority. Potential for a bus gate or a bus lane would certainly be worth looking into. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, I believe Councillor Hopkins on Jubilee Pool. You have 1 minute, Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The stated position of the administration in response to the huge campaign changed from forcing closure of Jubilee Pool to working towards community ownership and management. The community are working very hard in preparation, and the Friends Group have been boosted with large numbers of expert volunteers. But are the administration really trying to pass on the baton? I've attached the first response to the CAT offer, which illustrates the reality, and if people want to read that, it's in the supplementary version. Incorrect and complete information seems to have been supplied. Should all this be successfully overcome, then unbelievably the administration are demanding a share of future profits. You just couldn't make it up. I recently received an assurance from the Mayor that the contract with the present operators, Parkwood, which contains no council subsidy, would be extended beyond March. Parkwood, who with the help of the Friends Group have got to record membership and full sessions, are keen to continue, but no extension has been offered by the council. Council performance and attitude need to improve dramatically. Effort needs to be made.
Thank you very much. All statements will be referred to the Mayor for his consideration. That concludes Member Forum. We will reconvene at 4:45 for the extraordinary full council meeting.